Hi, my name is Cody Hosterman, and today I'm going to be doing a tech preview of a coming soon offering from Pure Storage, Site Recovery Manager support for ActiveDR. We'll be showing a test failover. Let's check it out. So the first step here is to, let's create our pods. ActiveDR takes a source pod that you create and links it to a target pod. So the first step is to create our source pod. So I'll give it a name, very creative, SRM pod A. And then the next thing we want to do is link it to a target pod. Now you can link it to an existing pod or you can create a new one. So I'm going to choose the array that I'd like to link it to, and then of course a pod on that array. So the option here in this wizard is to create a new one or you can choose another one. So I'll create a new one and I'll just go with B instead of A, following along with my theme of creativity. And now my source pod is linked to my target pod. Now also, this is optional. I'm going to create a protection group within this pod. You can create many if you want. And this protection group is going to provide snapshot policies. So basically it'll create a snapshot on a certain schedule of one or more volumes inside of this pod, the volumes that I choose. So this particular protection group will create a snapshot every hour and has a default retention policy that I'll keep. Now step 2 here, or 3, depending on what you're doing, is to create some storage on it, provision some storage from this pod. And in the VMware environment, one of the best ways to do that with Pure Storage is, of course, use our vSphere plugin. But you can do this manually or through a million other ways, depending on your preference. So using the vSphere plugin 4.40, which is coming out fairly soon as of today, which is July 8th, 2020, I'm going to go ahead and create a volume and provision it from an ActiveDR pod, the one that I just created. You can see there's some details about the pod, the relationship, and the lag time and recovery point. I'm also going to add it to that protection group that I just created. And for fun, why not set a bandwidth limit? The vSphere plugin allows you to set a bandwidth and or a IOPS limit on those volumes. And of course, you can do that within ActiveDR volumes too. So I'm going to provision this VMFS data store from that particular pod. You can see it's been created in that protection group. Jump back to the pod here and confirm its provisioning. Yep, there's that volume. Fantastic. And in that protection group, yes, there it is. So the next step is to, put some virtual machines on top of that data store, because of course, if we're going to protect a data store, you probably should be protecting some applications running on top of it. So I'm going to deploy some virtual machines here using a quick for loop in my PowerShell that I've been using. So this PowerShell is just going to go ahead and deploy about 15 virtual machines from an Ubuntu template to my data store. Because of course, if we're using Site Recovery Manager, we're not only protecting data stores, but we need to protect some virtual machines on top of it. So go ahead and deploy those after I set the numbers, kick off that loop, and it'll go ahead and clone a bunch of VMs from that particular template. So using the magic of video, I'm going to speed ahead 30 seconds or so, and then we'll go ahead and get those virtual machines powered on and move over to Site Recovery Manager. So select them all, power them on, and then move over to SRM to start configuring ActiveDR with the Pure Storage Storage Replication Adapter 4.0. Okay, the VMs are powered on, so let's jump over to Site Recovery Manager. We can confirm that we have the new version of the Storage Replication Adapter. You're going to need 4.0.0 at least to be able to manage ActiveDR. Within Site Recovery Manager with ActiveDR, we actually advertise the pods as arrays. So you'll see those new pods in that pod pair appear here as an array pair. So my SRM pod A and SRM pod B will show up as an array pair. I'll run a device discovery, and this will return all the volumes within that pod. And you'll see that we also have it advertised with a local consistency group. And what this does is it enforces SRM to fail over all those volumes together. Because when you're failing over a pod, you're failing over everything at once. And so this makes sure that SRM includes all of them in the same data store group. So within the protection group wizard, we'll choose that pod pair, that array pair, and we'll see all of our volumes. In this case, we only have one though, in that data store group. Go ahead and create a new recovery plan and commit. Okay, I'll finish that up. And now our protection group, our SRM protection group, is going to be protecting the virtual machines, creating the placeholders, and so forth. Let's confirm that's finished. Our VMs look all protected. Good. And yes, there they are. All 15 of them are good to go. Status is okay. So jumping over to our recovery plan, let's run a test. So in an ActiveDR world, when you run a test, it's going to take that target pod and promote it. The source pod will still be promoted and running. The volumes will be active inside of it. And it'll still be replicating to the target. This is a non-disruptive event for ActiveDR, and of course, with Site Recovery Manager managing it. So on the target side, we can see that this pod is currently demoted, but the test process, when it gets to create writable storage snapshot, it's going to promote that pod. Right now, during the synchronization, what it's doing is it's looking at the timestamp of the issuance of that synchronization and making sure the recovery point of that ActiveDR pair is at least equal to or later than that timestamp, saying, yes, we have that data on the target site. So that pod is being promoted. And we can see on the source site, that source pod is still in the promoted state, and of course it is still in the status of replicating. So the data, the changes, the snapshots, the volumes, the volume configurations, changes to protection groups are still being protected to the second side. If we look at that particular volume on the target site, we can see that, yeah, the configuration I set to it, that throughput limit that I originally set when I provisioned that volume is indeed replicated. ActiveDR is not just about protecting your data, it's also about protecting your environment and its configuration, point in time, snapshots, protection groups, QoS limits, and so forth. It is beyond just a data point in time. And one of the things we do within ActiveDR and SRM to manage the states of your volumes is tagging. This is a new feature in Purity 6.2, and that has a test failover tag on that particular volume. Now we'll go ahead and clean it up, which will shut down the virtual machines, clean up the environment, and this will demote that target pod, resetting it back to where it was and cleaning up that environment. We can watch the pod go from the promoted status to the demoted. There it goes. And it's ready to be tested again. So stay tuned for the release of the Storage Replication Adapter 4.0.